when I first came to Vietnam with the ambition to build a product team.
Yeah.
And you really need people who have full ownership of what they're building. So they need to be not just, delivering a specification someone else wrote, that they need to be solving the problems that themselves and having full engagement in the problem. One of the first things I needed to do was find, engineers who wanted that. Like I wasn't sure whether I would find those kind of people here with that mindset and that ambition because, of the stereotypes of outsourcing work that they have here. But it was actually easy. Finding ambitious people who are creative and good at solving problems wasn't really that hard. The hardest thing was just letting them know they had per mission to come up with their own ideas and to solve the problems themselves and empowering them.
That's interesting.
And once, people felt empowered, like very naturally, that they were able to solve those kind of problems.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the CTO Show by Tech Vibe. Today we have a special guest who's Jeremy, who is the Senior Director of Engineering at Schedulo. So thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show, Jeremy.
All right, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Jeremy, I noticed that you have such an extensive background in leadership across engineering and building this really big team, right? Both in Australia and also in Vietnam. So I guess for the viewers to get some context more about your professional background, we'd love to hear a little bit more about what you've been doing and how's your career progressed so far?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I started like many people start as a graduate software engineer. Actually, technically, I hadn't graduated when I did my first job. So I began as a junior developer, just went up the ranks, junior to senior, into a technical leadership role. And from technical leadership roles, I guess I started getting into more team leadership and thinking about more than just the code, but the processes and how we make the code and how we work as teams. Mm. So that was part of my inspiration for taking that next level. But really, it was also via really underestimating some other roles. Like a big transition in my career was when I changed from my first company to my second company, where basically I had this opportunity to switch from a software engineering role to a product manager role. And for many years I had, I guess, complained about product managers and thought their job is easy. I could do that with my eyes closed, and I very quickly learned that is not true. It is an extremely difficult and challenging role.
Yeah.
So I was a product manager for a thankfully very short time before getting back into engineering and engineering leadership again.
Wow, that's great. And I guess, were you always based in Vietnam, or how did you end up here? Because obviously, I think you're Australian and you're from somewhere else, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm originally from Australia, in Brisbane, Australia. So definitely the majority of my career, like the first 18, 19 years, was all spent in Australia. So when I was working at my current company, Schedulo, there was an opportunity to come here to build a product development center. So I basically came here to establish that center and to grow it.
That's awesome. And I guess for the viewers who are listening, do you mind giving some more context about what does Schedulo do and what this organization that you've built in Vietnam looks like right now?
Yeah, so Schedulo is a company that, it's a SaaS model company, and we build a software platform that enables other companies to manage and schedule their mobile workforce. So I guess a lot of people, when they think about mobile workforce and technology, they think about the gig economy and the Ubers and the Grabs and stuff like that. But we more service like the wider mobile workforce, which actually encompasses a lot of people, like everyone from an electrician doing work at your home, or people installing solar panels or fixing potholes in roads, like all the different kind of aspects of people who don't work behind a desk in an office every day. Those are the kind of companies Schedulo services on their platform. So we help them schedule the work, manage their resources, optimize things so that it's running as efficiently as possible, and try and provide a better experience for both the scheduler and the workers in the field.
That's super cool. It's a very niche kind of problem, but I can imagine that it's quite impactful because, the gig economy is definitely something that is taking off, and I would say that, it's quite popular in Southeast Asia, but it does seem like a lot of your clients are more US based, and then your team is more, in Vietnam and in this geography, right?
Yeah, that's right. The market we are selling to at Schedulo is mostly United States, Australia, and Europe, but we have a really big development presence here in Vietnam.
Okay. And so you first came here and basically started building this development kind of center in Vietnam. What was that experience like for you?
Really, really fun, I would say, for sure. Like we had a small presence here in Vietnam doing services work. So when I came to Vietnam, it was to, I guess, trial the idea that we could do product development here. And so that was both, I guess, proving to the company that we could do it. And thankfully, we've been pretty successful and now have a quite big product development team here in Vietnam.
Wow. And what does the team structure look like? Like how many people, how many engineers do you guys have here?
Yeah, so we have probably around 80 software engineers at the moment. And we also have product managers, technical writers, a G&A-like team to do office management and recruitment and HR and all of those things. So overall, almost 100 people here in Vietnam.
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty comprehensive kind of workforce and a pretty big office as well. I'm just curious, obviously since you're not from here and you had to kind of help build this team from scratch, like were there any surprises about living in Vietnam or working in Vietnam that, that you found in your experience so far?
Yeah, so many surprises for sure. Like I think one of the biggest shocks when I first came to Vietnam was everyone treated me with way too much respect. like definitely the culture here is more of a respect-based culture for your status or age or things like that compared to Australia, where we really don't have that kind of culture at all. So like at first it was really challenging to build the kind of relationships with people that I wanted to build because they were a little bit maybe scared of me or wanted to show me too much respect or weren't sure they were telling me like what their problems really were. So that was definitely one of the challenges I had to face for sure when I first came.
Wow, very cool. And I guess this applies to both like professional and personal kind of experiences as well. I think you mentioned to me that there was a team bonding kind of event that you went to, and this was very surprising for you as well.
Yeah, like in work culture in Australia, like I guess we do our job 9 to 5, and generally after that we go home to our families usually. So I find the Vietnam culture here, there's a lot more out of office activities that get done, and also the idea of like a company offsite was something I hadn't really experienced before coming here. And I'd done some big company events and things like that, and a lot of it's about you do some team building activities, you brainstorm on certain issues and to get strategize on direction, and then after 5 you go back to your hotel room and that's it.
Right.
Well, here in Vietnam, I found that aspect of it, like doing the events during the day, was just the start. It was really the after hours activities, the having a little drink, maybe playing some cards and stuff like that. That was where the real fun and the real important work actually got done. The creating of relationships, the bonding, the getting to know people outside of your usual work route, like that's where a lot of the benefit really come from that event.
I'm just curious, since you both developed teams and worked in Australia and Vietnam, what's kind of your general take about the general engineering talent and, for other people who are looking to hire in Vietnam, especially and outsource their kind of software engineering, capabilities here. Like, what's your opinion so far? And yeah.
Yeah, so like I used to say, like at least when I first came here, I thought like Vietnam was one of technology's biggest secrets because there was so much talent here, really good workforce, really hardworking workforce as well. But not many companies, at least not from Australia, had thought about developing a centre here in Vietnam. People mostly look to India or look to the Philippines perhaps, but not Vietnam. So when I first came to Vietnam, I was really impressed by the talent that was available here and the people we were able to find. Certainly now, I think the secret's out, and there's a lot more investment and foreign companies moving into Vietnam.
Got it. I think it's still definitely something that a lot of companies are looking into, and it's really cool that you kind of identified this trend before it was super popular and the secret is out. I'm just curious, reflecting on your past 2 years, what are some of these lessons about like things that you should do, things that you should not do when building a team here and when kind of centralizing this software engineering capability here?
Yeah, like this is a really interesting question, and there's like a few things I think you should think about. Like if you're a foreign company coming into Vietnam. And like I think one of the mistakes or mindset problems a lot of people have is they think of like places like Vietnam or other offshore centers, it's more like a back office where you might do support or less important work. But this is actually a place you can really build product and tackle really difficult problems with really talented people, for sure. So a lot of it's about you need to have a mindset to go in to achieve great things and not just think, I'll just set up an office and do the work I don't really want to do here. Like I think this is a place you can really do big things.
Got it. That's pretty cool. So I guess if you dive into this like mindset about actually using the talent to develop product and do these more innovative tasks that people don't associate with outsourcing. What does that look like? And specifically, I'm curious about if you take yourself back to the day one of moving to Vietnam and building that initial culture and hiring those first engineers. Would love to kind of get some of your experience and what that was like as well.
Yeah, so like I definitely, when I first came to Vietnam, it was with the ambition to build a product team.
Yeah.
And so that means you really need people who have full ownership of what they're building. So they need to be not just delivering a specification someone else wrote, that they need to be solving the problems that themselves and having full engagement in the problem. So like one of the first things I needed to do was find engineers who wanted that. Like I wasn't sure whether I would find those kind of people here with that mindset and that ambition, because of the stereotypes of outsourcing work that they have here. But it was actually easy.
Oh, really?
Like finding ambitious people who are creative and good at solving problems wasn't really that hard. The hardest thing was just letting them know they had permission to come up with their own ideas and to solve the problems themselves and empowering them.
That's interesting.
And once people felt empowered, like very naturally, that they were able to solve those kind of problems.
Wow, that's super interesting. And I guess for you guys, like, how did you end up finding a lot of these employees? Because a lot of companies, when they do come here, they don't really know where to start, right? And they actually have the opposite problem. But I'm just curious, how do you go about finding this talent usually?
Yeah, I did not know how to start when I first came here. And pretty much when I first was in Vietnam, I was doing mostly everything myself. Like I was writing the JDs, I was posting them on ITVIC and other job sites. I was doing all of the interviews. I was going to the universities. I was getting into mentorship programs. I was doing everything I could possibly think of to try and find the talent I was trying to find. So I just created my own kind of channels there and built the relationships.
That's cool.
I think it's easier now, for sure. But those are the kind of things I had to do at the start.
And culturally, do you find that it was difficult to create this culture of more openness and transparency, where people can run free with their own ideas and take on this role that is maybe a little bit different than what they're traditionally used to?
Like it was a little bit at the start, but like I did feel that like this is actually people are pretty hungry for. People want that responsibility and they want to have ownership over the problem. So I guess once you kind of break the ice and get it started, like it flew pretty easily after that.
And I guess I'm just curious, just to learn from your own experience, right? If there's other foreign companies that want to set up an engineering center or build this capability within Vietnam, are there any specific mistakes that either you guys have made or from your experience that you learned that you would advise people to avoid or that you would have personally done differently?
Yeah, so I think some of the things you should think about is like, firstly, you probably have stereotypes in mind about the country you're moving to and the people there and how they work. So probably like try and take them out of your mind, because the reality is going to be different to your preconceived notions of it. And also like I think the culture and the environment you establish there, be very mindful about the kind of culture you want, because I think you can create whatever culture you need in the organization if you're mindful about it from the ground up. So that's definitely important, I would say.
I guess in your previous experience, were there specific things that you did to really acclimate yourself to the culture and build something that was more in tune with culture here, specifically in Vietnam?
Yeah. So when I first came here, like I didn't understand anything. So I spent a lot of time really, sometimes awkwardly, trying to get to know people personally. And that led to some really, really good experiences, and it really helped building their relationships. So I don't know, for Vietnam, I think a lot of things gravitate around sharing food. Like going out to eat with people and having meals. Like I think that's really, really important in getting to know people. And then like I guess some other really cool moments for me was when I spent my first Tet here in Vietnam, and then being invited around to different people's houses, and once again a lot more food.
Wow.
Getting to know just not them but their families as well, like really helped me understand the culture and the people I was working with here.
Wow. And I hear now that you get invited to quite a few weddings as well in Vietnam.
I think I've been to more weddings in Vietnam than in Australia.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Next time I'll invite you to my wedding if ever I have one. I'm curious, I guess, that, now that I kind of see that you guys are a pretty scaled up organization, and obviously Vietnam has also grown in terms of a software engineering capability. There's a lot of competition for talent now, right? And there's a lot of Western companies, especially coming here. And while you guys may have been very early, now there's almost like a war for talent. So I'm just curious from your perspective, how have you seen that evolved? And right now, what do you look for when you're hiring talent, or how do you actually retain talent as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like the market is definitely increasingly competitive at the moment for definitely the top talent and the kind of talent we want to hire. And like there's a lot of different things that attract people to a company. It's certainly salary is one, but as a company, not every company can compete on salary. Like there are limits to that, so you have to find other things as well. And a lot of it is like the company culture and the work environment is very important. I definitely find engineers look for like opportunities to grow in their career. Like, how do I develop my skills? What technologies am I working with? What opportunities do I have at this company? And I think if people will sometimes accept a slightly lower salary than they could get elsewhere if they think there's going to be good opportunities for their professional development.
Interesting. So I guess, is it more around, financial compensation, either in terms of salary or, now a lot of startups, especially in the US, they do this concept of like employee stock options. Like, do people, are people incentivized by those incentives, or is it more around the career development and mentorship that you talked about as well?
Yeah, like Well, definitely things like salary and stock options are an important motivator for people to take a job. Like how you differentiate yourself as a company in the market is through those other things.
Got it.
By providing opportunities and environment that people really want to work in.
That's great. And how do you guys structure this kind of mentorship or the career progression? How do you guys design those mechanisms to retain the talent?
Yeah, so retaining talent, like I think, is extremely important, especially in technology where people change jobs a lot. But there's a quite significant cost in upskilling and bringing on new engineers. So retention is really, really important. I think just continuous feedback models to help people improve and trying to map out what careers would look like to them and how they can grow. And trying to find opportunities. Like sometimes a person is really good at something, but needs space to grow into something new. So it's sometimes you need to create opportunities for people to grow, even if they might not be good at it to start with. Like give people the chance to grow.
Wow. For you guys, do you see a lot of sometimes people want to hop to new opportunities that seem very sexy, or is it more that your employees stay a pretty long time with the company?
Yes, so we've actually got, compared to the industry average, a pretty stable company. Like we have quite a few employees who've been with us for longer than 5 years here in Vietnam, and a few who have been here with the company ever since it first was established here in Vietnam as well. So we've got pretty good retention so far.
That's great.
But it's definitely always a top concern. Yeah.
Great. I also heard that you guys have a pretty unique reporting structure that sometimes even interns report directly to you, who is a very, very senior kind of person in the organization. We'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that philosophy, specifically like why do you do that? Maybe a lot of other leaders may look at that as like a waste of time, but would love to hear your philosophy.
So reporting into me, I usually have like the senior engineering managers, our technical leaders, so like our architects and staff engineers, and also the interns currently. And maybe I do it for selfish reasons. Like I hope not entirely selfish reasons. But like I feel like mentorship is really important, and like I'm really passionate about bringing junior people into an organization and helping them grow. And also, like when you've been working in the industry for a long time, it's easy to get cynical and a little bit jaded. So sometimes being surrounded by young people who are fresh to the industry and excited and enthusiastic and full of energy, like helps me become excited and enthusiastic and full of energy as well. So for that selfish reason, I like it. But also, like the people I'm talking to, like the juniors and the interns coming in, they are the future leaders. Like they're going to be growing up. So specifically with the interns we take into the company, like I'm looking for very specific mindsets and attitudes of people I think are very high potential. So I just want to provide them with the early mentorship they need to be as successful as possible in their careers.
Wow. I guess other senior leaders may kind of look at this and be like, you must be super busy managing a lot of different projects and a lot of senior engineering leaders and also a lot of workflows. So maybe the pushback, or just to play devil's advocate, they might say like, oh wow, I don't have enough time to do that. I'm just curious what your reaction would be to that kind of pushback.
Yeah, like certainly that kind of question gets asked. Like, why am I spending my time there? We've all only got finite time and attention we can put on things. But like, I think it's really important as part of the culture we have that, and especially as leaders, like we demonstrate that helping people and helping other people grow is really, really important. And also that just because people have less experience or skill doesn't mean they're not worth our time to invest in. So this is just something I want to demonstrate and just make it part of the company culture that we're all helping each other grow.
That's amazing. I guess would you recommend that other senior leaders and other organizations also kind of do this model as well?
Like I definitely would recommend it. It's not for everyone, but if you're the kind of person who like really enjoys mentorship and likes people grow in their roles and do development, like I think is good. And also if you're feeling a little bit jaded and tired, like definitely.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Infuse kind of the culture with very young energy and feels very exciting as well. I want to shift back a little bit to your career as well. And one thing that I noticed that is quite interesting is that you have a very extensive, very long career, and obviously you've achieved a lot of success. But throughout your CV or your LinkedIn, you've only worked for 2 companies, and you worked for both companies in a pretty long period of time relative to other engineers or senior leaders in technology. So we'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that and ask you for your thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, sure.
Well. Yeah.
So, like, I guess for me, when I'm looking for a company to work for, or when I'm looking for a place to work, it's mostly about the people I'm working with. Like that's the main thing. Like I've never been really career orientated or ambitious. Like all of my promotions have been more by accident rather than something I've strived for, I would say. So like usually if I feel respected at my workplace, if the work is interesting, and most importantly, I love the people I work with, like I have no desire to move or look around. So I guess I'm not the kind of person who goes, oh, I could switch to that company and get 3% more pay. Like is never a question I ask. I'm more like, am I having fun? Do I like the people I work with? Do I feel respected? If all those things are true, then I usually stick around.
Wow, that's I feel like you're just being very humble about how your promotions have been more by accident. I feel like it's definitely more around maybe you've done really great work, but the people really do matter that you surround yourself with well. That's awesome. And I'm curious, I guess, you've kind of migrated as you've gone up through the organization into different roles. I'm just curious how your responsibilities have changed, right, across from when you were more junior engineer and more individual contributor to becoming a leader to becoming now, a leader of leaders as well.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting and at times challenging thing. Like certainly the progression from like a junior engineer to a senior engineer feels quite natural. Like you're just expanding your skills, you're picking up domain knowledge of the product you're working in and just getting better with experience. But I guess the transition from a individual contributor to a leader is dramatic and painful. I would say, because you're basically starting from zero in a new career. I would say. Really? Yeah, that's certainly how I felt. Like I was I was a software engineer. I cared about code. I was looking at engineering. I was, wanted my code to be clean and elegant and beautiful and efficient and all of those kind of things. Yeah. And I liked solving those kind of problems that you can neatly solve with a computer, whereas people are a lot more difficult. Like you have a lot less control over a person's actions than you do of a computer program, right? So it was a entirely new skill set to apply when you go into a leadership role. And there's usually, at least in my experience, no training or preparedness for that. That is helpful, I would say. Like it's more like you're thrown into the fire and you need to deal with it. But having a good mentor, someone who's experienced it before, is really, really helpful for that as well. For sure.
Wow. And I guess as you go up in the organization and you become a leader of leaders, that's also a different set of problems because now you're dealing with managers, right? So yeah. I guess now, day to day, do you still code at all? Do you still write any? Yeah.
No, like it's very rarely I get to code. The times I do get to play around, like I really love it. But it's very best for the company if I stay away from GitHub, I would say.
I see. Okay.
Right now. But like it's definitely interesting at this level because like you're still fully accountable for what gets built. Like even though you're not the responsible person for building it, you are accountable for what gets built. So you still have to have that kind of mindset that the quality of the solution that gets delivered, even though I'm not writing the code anymore, like I still have a responsibility over it and try to make sure and provide the engineers with all the tools and the resources that they need so they can make that happen.
I guess how would you think about, if you had to go back and knowing what you know now, how do you think about going down these various paths of becoming a very senior individual contributor and continuing to code versus becoming more of a people manager and engineering leader within an organization?
Yeah, so like I said, it is a different career. So if you're a person who's really loves to code, loves solving problems that are solvable neatly with code, maybe not consider people leadership, unless like you really love helping other people solve problems. Unless you really like growing and developing people, and if you want to deal more with, I guess, strategy and how organizations work and internally communicate with each other and things like that, that's more of the focus. Like I've definitely in my time seen, like quite often when companies need a new manager or something like that, they'll promote the most senior engineer in that team to do that job, and that's often a mistake because that person doesn't want to do that perhaps, or thinks they want to do it but then realizes that it's not their skill set and not something different. They're passionate about. It's very, very different. So like I guess people who are thinking about this role think like, what motivates you? Like what are the kind of problems you want to solve? And if like people and organizational kind of problems are one of them, then definitely do it because it's very rewarding. But if you prefer not to solve people problems, which can be quite complicated, like people and resourcing and budgets and things like that, if they don't sound fun, then probably stay as an IC, because like honestly, I love being an IC. Like I really loved, having a problem and then going away and solving it and coming out with a solution. Like it was a bit of like an endorphin hit to go through that cycle every day, and you don't quite get that satisfaction as a manager, or at least not as often. So definitely I very fondly look back at my times as a software engineer for sure.
That's really cool. Yeah. I think a lot of people naturally assume that the next step in the career progression is to become an engineering leader, but obviously, as you mentioned, it's a very, very different set of skills, and it's quite different as well. I think what struck me is, when I look at your career as well, is that you took like a break and then you became a project manager as well. Like, you went on the PM side. Would you recommend that people try that just to get that experience as well? And I guess, did that also help you contribute to the success of your career? And now as a senior engineering leader, do you look back to that experience and you kind of really appreciate that experience as well? Or
yeah, like I really do appreciate that experience. Like, so I guess a little bit of the background on that experience is that, like, for a long time as a software engineer, I was very critical of, project managers and product managers and that kind of role. I was thinking, I could do that. It's so easy. I'm sure I could do a better job than they could. Yeah. And I quickly found that wasn't true. It's a really hard and challenging role, and there were a lot of things I didn't understand that were part of that role. So, like, I think that's a really good experience, and those experiences in general, where you get to build empathy for other roles in the organization, like what are the kind of problems they need to solve and what are the challenges they have, help you do your job better because you know what they need from you. And then especially as a leader where you're dealing with a wide organization, like knowing what product managers need, what engineers need, knowing what the marketing team may need, having those different appreciations for different roles is certainly helpful.
That's awesome. Yeah. So maybe you don't have to spend too long in it, but at least having that overview and having that understanding and empathy definitely makes you a better leader overall.
Yeah, or even if you don't spend time in the role, like just build close connections with those people as well. Like really understand what they do and what kind of problems they need to solve.
That makes sense. I guess I'm also curious because, in your first company, you spent quite a few years, like 18 years, I think, right?
Yep.
In that company. So this current company that you joined, like what was it about this company that really motivated you to, kind of start anew and embark on a new adventure, move to Vietnam, do all of those things?
Yeah, like it was the sense of adventure largely. Like my first company I worked at was a pretty big company. I think around 6,000 employees, which is quite big. And I guess at the time I felt like when you're in a company that size, it's hard to make an impact. Like it's hard to stand out, and roles are very constrained and specific. So I guess what attracted me to Scheduler was it was like a just post Series A company. It was still establishing, product market fit. It was growing. It was just like, this is an opportunity where I can make a difference and have a big impact. So that's what attracted me to changing roles at the time.
I see. And was that a big adjustment, if you choose, like, let's say a startup environment where the company is just around Series A versus, a bigger company? Like, how do you,
Yeah, like it was a big adjustment. Like a few people, including myself, was concerned I'd struggle with the environment, like going from an environment where everything is really structured, there's a process for everything, right? To like more of a startup environment where there's no process, there's not really roles, like you don't fit into any box, you do what is needed at the time, right? Like whatever is needed, you just lean in and do. But I found that change really invigorating. Like it gives you lots of energy, and certainly to be able to influence things and make an impact felt very possible. So yeah, I just love the change in environment.
Interesting. And I guess to other people who are going through a similar situation about choosing to work in a startup versus a more traditional corporate environment, do you have any advice for them?
Certainly there's some good things about big corporate environments and established places like that. Like I think one of the things you can learn in one of those big companies is what does best practice look like?
Right.
Like they've often spent a lot of time honing their solutions and setting up their processes. So they often have really good processes and systems and things like that. And also they have a lot of resources. Like there's a lot of resources they can throw at the problems. So you probably have a dedicated design team. You probably have people who just look at infrastructure. You probably have people doing all kinds of roles. Like at my company, we had people who all they did was look at query explain plans and try and optimize queries, like very specialized kind of skills.
Right.
So very high levels of specialization where you can go very deep. Whereas a smaller company at a start of, it's much more dynamic, less stable. You're doing more kinds of things. You may be a front-end engineer one day and a back-end engineer the next day, because you're just trying to solve the problem by any means necessary. Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess knowing what you know now, do you think that this path of maybe you start out at a bigger company where you get the foundation, you get the basics, the best practices, and moving to the startup, is that kind of the recommended career path as well? Or how would one kind of optimize kind of their own journey and experiences knowing what you know now?
Yeah, well, I'd say if you're optimizing your career journey, don't spend 18 years in the one company. I would probably give as a recommendation.
Yeah.
But so certainly experience both. And maybe if you start your career in a smaller company, think of a larger company as your next. Because I think experiencing the different environments and being exposed to different things really helps you grow.
Okay. And I guess a more general question is, if you are an engineer, whether it be someone who's relatively junior or relatively senior, how do you think about choosing a company to commit your time to, right, for the next few years? What are the general principles that one should look out for, and what are the, the questions that one should ask when considering that next move as well?
Yeah, so I've always been pretty picky about the companies I choose. So I'm looking for very specific things. Firstly is the product and the technology that they're doing. Do I find it inspiring? Are they doing something I think is cool? Are they solving a hard problem that other people haven't solved, or they're solving it in a unique or better way?
Right.
I find that really attractive when I look for companies, because I guess I'm looking for my own personal growth, and I'm looking to work with really smart people, hopefully much smarter than me, so I can help achieve that growth. So that's the kind of I look at the product and the technology that they're doing. I need to like the people who are interviewing me.
Yes.
Like, I think that's really important that I'm able to build a rapport with them.
Yeah.
And it looks like a good working environment.
That's awesome. I think earlier you also mentioned that one important factor is like mentorship in terms of how you've been able to learn and progress in your career. Maybe a lot of people, they don't really know how to get started on mentorships. They know that mentors are very important, but how do you even get started? How do you find a mentor? How do you know one is right for me? Like, how did you go about that process?
Yeah, I guess for me it was pretty organic, and like I've been involved with like networking events and talking to people at different companies and things like that. And quite often I will see a person who's like just a bit ahead in their career than me, and I'll just ask them. It's like, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. Can you tell me about the kind of things? And like, really, I've never had anyone say, no, I don't have time, or I don't want to talk to you, or anything like that. Most of the people I've approached want to talk about what they do because they love what they do, and will talk about it to any random person who asks them. Has usually been my experience. So trying to find someone who is where you want to be and just approach them has been reasonably successful. And likewise, like I believe having a mentee is important at every stage of your career as well.
Yeah.
So and not just interns like I talked about before, but I like finding people who are like one step below where I am as well, because helping them really helps me articulate my philosophy and my thinking, because I have to explain it to someone else. So that sometimes helps me, I guess, check myself. Is what I'm saying really true, and can I justify it? So it helps me solidify my ideas in my current role as well by having to explain them to someone else.
Wow, very cool. Are there any specific career decisions or different ways of thinking that you changed your mind on because of your like mentors, or any kind of advice that they gave you that was really thought-provoking or life-changing?
Yeah, like certainly there's been a heap of advice I've got. Some good, some bad, and I've followed bad advice at times, for sure. But I guess like some of the things like they've talked about with me just has been like, you should be responsible for your own career and development. Don't wait for someone else to give you the promotion or the skills or the opportunity. Like not necessarily ask for it, but seek it out and like demonstrate that you want it, and look for opportunities as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, I really love the concept of even not only just mentorship, but also having a personal board of advisors, right? So obviously companies have boards of advisors or boards, but having multiple people that you can go to in any step of your career, whether it be professional decisions, personal decisions, and using these people to actually help you orient your next step as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's very cool. You've had a very long engineering career and obviously leadership career. I'm sure there are some like pretty funny or wild stories that you've had. Are there any things that kind of stick out to you?
Yeah, there's definitely been a few big moments that stand out. Like, as you said, I'm old. So like
I did not say that.
so I began my career in the late 1990s, and the big thing in that time was the Y2K bug. Right. Nice. So I think from the public perception of that, it's like, oh, there's this big thing. There was this huge bug, and then when the year 2000 kicked around, not much happened at all. So everyone said, oh, it wasn't a big deal after all. But from my experience, it was a huge deal. Like I was working for a company that did telecommunications software. So the idea of, the phone networks going down on the year 2000 would have been a big deal.
Scary.
Yeah. So there was significant work done in the years leading up to Y2K to comb through lots of old legacy code, look for all of the problems, and huge efforts to mitigate anything going wrong. And like definitely in my company, we did capture some of those problems and solve them before it happened. And like I remember feeling really good that we'd done the work, we'd done the due diligence, we're all safe. And then when I was out at a New Year's Eve party, year 2000, all the phone networks did go down. But it was basically a network problem in that at midnight 2000, everyone called someone.
Oh, I see.
At the same time. So it was a big infrastructure overload. And even though I know companies predicted there would be a big increase, it was not like any New Year's beforehand. And the load was just tremendous and overloaded the system. So for a very short time, I was panicking. I thought I'd missed something. We've made a mistake. This is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But at least it wasn't my fault. Another really standout experience in my career would be when my company transitioned from like a very large waterfall model into a more agile model. So I guess the background is to get a release out, it took us about 2 years, I would say. So the difference between product releases were two years apart. So a really big upfront design, engineering effort followed by QA effort under a waterfall model. And at the time, that was pretty common amongst big companies to work like that. It's kind of unheard of today. But as an organization, we decided we wanted to transition from 2-year releases to 2-week releases. So I guess going through especially for a very big organization, the process changes, the customer relationship changes, the entire operations of how you change a company from a 2-yearly release cycle to a 2-weekly release cycle was a really challenging program of work, but a really amazing experience.
Wow. And for you as a more senior leader, like, I guess, how did you manage those kind of changes and how did you see this through?
Yeah, so like at the time I was in like a technical leadership role. So I was in the advisory group for the kind of technical challenges we needed to solve there. So like a lot of the challenges we solved there were not necessarily technical. Like the technical solutions were possible. And it's also, I guess, one of the things that got me interested into more leadership careers, because a lot of the problems were operational. They were communications. It was more the ways of working rather than the work itself.
I guess if you had to go back or if you had to make another change, like a big organizational shift like this, is there anything you would have done differently or improved?
Firstly, I wouldn't underestimate the challenge, especially in a big organization. It's harder than you think.
Right.
Like big organizational changes like that are very, very difficult and they require a lot of communication. So probably I would say communicate more and more often would be a big thing I would recommend people do. Like don't underestimate the communication challenges because there's a lot of things that need to change. There's a lot of buy-in you need to get with different parts of the organization. So there's a lot of communication aspects to those kind of changes.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a very big change that you have to go through. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I can imagine how much stress that must have been to deal with that. Yeah, and I think everyone thought that world probably was ending at that point. So that's very cool. I guess I'm just curious now, like you've been in Vietnam for, I would say 5 years, around 5 years. I'm curious from the kind of time that you started in 2019 until now, what have been the evolution of thoughts about the tech market here, the engineering market here? Are you still optimistic about the future? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, incredibly optimistic about the future here for sure. And it has changed quite a bit. Like even in 5 years, which 5 years is short, I would say. Like even in technology, that's relatively short. But the market here in Vietnam has changed a lot. Certainly when I came here, like almost every company was some type of outsourcing services kind of company. There were very few product companies here. There are some big companies doing like offshore development here, but not many, I would say, successful startups in a way. Like there are definitely a few gems, but it was far less common. But I think the market was primed for it. Like the talent was here, the entrepreneurial spirit is here. Like it was just ready for the right moment, and I think that was the moment, and it's really starting to pick up now. like certainly Vietnam and a lot of Southeast Asia has got pretty advanced e-commerce, like I would say, even compared to like Australia for sure. Like I find shopping online here far better experience.
Wow.
So that was really, really interesting. But also now we're seeing companies that are building product here that are solving really interesting and innovative problems here. And the space is transitioning to be less of we'll do outsourcing work or creating WordPress websites for people, but now doing like serious software engineering here.
Wow. Okay. So overall, still very optimistic about the future. And
very optimistic, yeah.
Where the market is headed.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think the last section that we want to do with you is more of a quick fire rapid questions.
Okay.
Right. So we'll have 5 quick fire questions for you, and feel free to kind of say whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So the first thing is, what is your favorite technology tool or app that you're currently using?
Well, actually, a bit of a lifesaver at the moment is like of having to, like I've always had to create a lot of like presentations and things like that and do slides. So at the moment, like using AI to generate slide images from text has been a huge time saver. I used to spend ages creating the graphics I wanted on slides. So using AI to, I guess, put in some text and say, generate me an image that showcases this idea in a diagrammatic form has saved me a lot of time recently. So that's been really, really good.
Very cool, very cool. I'll check some of those out. I haven't actually used the generative AI for presentations before, but that's interesting as a use case. If you were not doing what you're doing now, what other profession do you think you'd be pursuing?
Probably something in hospitality. Like I know that's pretty wild and weird, but I kind of love tourists. Like I find tourists really, really cool because often, like even when tourists visit, where I'm from in Australia, they'd be wandering around the city with like wide eyes and really impressed with things that I, just take for granted.
Right.
So being able to show things to people who are really excited about what you're showing them, I think would be very rewarding. So I think some type of hospitality-based career where I can show people a great experience.
That's awesome. I think Vietnam is also a very good place to do that.
I think so.
Yeah. Next question is, what are you most grateful for in life?
Like probably I was not grateful for it at the time, but some of the rules my parents had. Like, for example, my parents, bought me my first computer in the 1980s.
Wow.
And I really wanted it to play games, and they would not buy me any games. Like, they said, if you want to play games, you have to make your own. So that's what started me in my career on coding.
Wow.
Was basically, at the time, there were these magazines you could buy that had the code for games, and you could type them out and put them in your own computer and play them. And then you started modifying them yourself and making little changes like that. And that, I guess, gave me my passion for coding and made me think, well, this is like magical and I'm doing this for fun and people might pay me to do it as well. Like, I'm very appreciative of that.
So would you say to any other parents who have kids that if your kids want to use social media, they have to code it as well?
Exactly. make them write their own Facebook.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Easy. And then the last 2 questions is, the first one is, what is the worst advice that you've ever received?
The worst advice? Probably, like, I got told once that I really shouldn't take on leadership activities because I'm pretty much an introvert. Like, I'm not a naturally extroverted person. So maybe leadership isn't for me. But, like, I actually think there's, a good power in being an introvert in that, like, your listening skills are often very good. You're often paying attention to other people and what they say and what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And it also sometimes, like, introverts, when they speak, they're very concise. So when you need to do good communication, which is extremely important in leadership roles, often you think before you speak, which is sometimes helpful.
Yes.
For sure.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think you've proven wrong, and given that your career is, very illustrious now. And I guess the last question that I have is like, what's the best advice that you've ever received?
So the best advice, it was not original advice, but it's something I got from a mentor of mine. And basically he quoted a old philosopher from 2,000 years ago, and basically said, the impediment to action is your action. Like, so what is your problem? What is your obstacle? What is stopping you from getting to A to B? That's the direction you go. That's where your energy and your focus should be on. Like, your biggest problem shouldn't be avoided. It should be tackled head on as your highest priority, because that's what's stopping you getting what you want or where you want to go. So give your problems your energy and attention.
Wow. That's super powerful. It doesn't just apply to professional, but also personal problems and issues as well. That's super, super cool. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. I had an absolute pleasure learning about your personal and also professional journey, your experiences building such a established engineering organization in Vietnam, and your thoughts also about the future and how engineering leaders should think about their careers. And really appreciate your time in being here. And thank you so much for listening, everyone. This has been another episode of the CTO Show by Tech Vibe, and look forward to having you guys on the next episode as well. Thank you.